Hello there, model kit fans. This is Jim, and thank you again for taking the time to stop by my YouTube channel. This is part 4 in a long series of U.S. fighter airplane models made and built by myself. And today we're going to be focusing on the P-60s. And so what I'm going to be doing is basically showing you and talking about the materials made in the model kits, and then a little bit of background for each of the planes that were produced. So we'll go ahead and get started with the Curtiss XP-60. Now, which sits right over here. And by the way, I thought that, and I'd like some feedback on this if you guys feel emboldened to do so. In the comments, I decided to put these all on my Star Wars collector case trays, so that way you could have a better comparison of size difference between the planes. For example, like this P-61 here, it's about as large, if not larger, than a B-25, and compare that with the Curtiss XP-60, which is your normal fighter plane size for that era. So, anyway, if you like this display better than the turnstile, please let me know. And again, if you like the video, please give that a thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. So, starting again with the XP-60. Now, the book that I'm using is, or the reference is by Lloyd Jones from 1974, U.S. Fighters, Aero Publishing. And it's a fantastic book for just real brief references on things. And so what I thought I'd do is just show you all the different variations of the XP-60 that Curtiss kept trying to get it right and couldn't. So we see on the left the C version, then goes the A, the D, and the E. The final version they called the YP-60E, as you see there, and then there's some pictures of each one of these. It's hard to find really a biography on it on YouTube. The unfortunate thing was that even with the final version of the XP-60, it only had a maximum speed of 405 miles per hour, which was far short of the speed of the P-47 and the P-51, which were already well into production by 1944, which is when the final version of this came out. So Curtiss kept trying, just couldn't get it right. And unfortunately, the plane just had too many problems, and the program was finally canceled by December 22nd of 1944. Now, this plane was built by myself, and I use an acrylic body, as well as and then styrene plastic wings. The landing gear I probably took off other planes that I had used in the past, and the decals, again, I saved the decals from other planes, that extras that I use, and so it was probably just a carryover from that. Now, the next plane is a very famous Northrop P-61 night fighter that debuted in 1942, and so we needed a night fighter in Europe, and this, even though it was slow, it more than filled the role. This plane is a resin model produced by Don's Models, Don Schmink of Ohio. He was a former retired F-100 pilot, and the decals were made by Mark Tutton, who I don't know if his site's still up there, but it's Starfighter Decal. He did a lot of personal work for me until his business really took off, and then that kind of canceled. But anyway, it's a beautiful fighter, and what's interesting about this plane compared to the rest is it has the largest wingspan of 66 feet. It's just ginormous. Now, the next plane is the XP-62, and the final Curtiss entry in piston planes. It's got a double rotating prop. This plane was made by Anigrand. It came with one of their big bomber planes. And you'll notice there's some nice panel markings there. The decals are also from Anigrand. I do believe Anigrand made a P-61, but I had purchased that many years before I even knew about Anigrand. So the XP-62, again, was another big disappointment for Curtiss. It had a maximum speed of 448 miles per hour, and though that was good, it just really wasn't quite what they were looking for. What the Army Air Force was looking for, and as it turns out, it only got 3/4 of the way built before even the whole contract was canceled, because the U.S. Army Air Force wanted Curtiss to produce P-62 or P-47 production and P-61s, and so when your direction is focused that way, it's kind of hard to get things going, especially when the P-47 was a much better fighter. Now, moving on to the Bell P-63 King Cobra. This was kind of an interesting plane, and from the research that I've done, the reason why we didn't use this here in the United States, even though it was a really neat plane, was because it did not hold a lot of fuel. And so, as you may recall, if you're into World War II fighters, they were used as bomber escorts, and so they needed to be able to store a lot of fuel. So what this ended up being is over 2,000 of these were sold to Russia on the Lend-Lease program. Now, all of my fighters happen to have U.S. decals, and so I went online and found that one that actually said test on this. Now, the model company that produced the P-63 is ARII, and Mark Tutton, again, made the decals for me. Now, in case you're wondering when I built these, this was built in 2011, this was built in 2008, 2009, and then 2008. Now, the next one we'll take a look at was also made by Don Schmink of Don's Models, same guy that made the P-61, and that is the North American P-64, which you T6 Texans fans will recognize that, yeah, this looks very, very similar. So this was a resin kit that he produced, and I'm trying to be very careful so I don't break the cable wiring, which is just fishing line, incidentally. Only 6 of these were built, interestingly enough, and they was originally supposed to go to Brazil, and when that was canceled, it was supposed to go to Siam, and that was canceled because of World War, because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And so these were just kept at home, and they were just used as trainers. But at that point, it was given the designation of the P-64, made by North American. Again, that's a resin model. All Don's models are made of resin, as is the Anigrand. The King Cobra is made of styrene plastic. Now, moving on to the Grumman XP-65. You may recognize this. It looks very similar to the F7 F1 Tiger Cat, doesn't it? Well, the story that I've read goes like this. Grumman was trying to simultaneously make a plane for both the U.S. Army Air Force and the Navy. And when they realized that they could not make it function for both branches, they decided to focus on the Navy, since that really was where their bread and butter was. Now, this plane is made by a different artist by the name of Terry Patrick. It's made out of all resin, and the decals were also made by Mark Tutton, and I happened to build that in 2009. Now, before I talk about the P-66, I want to talk about why I use acrylic. So in Tacoma, which is nearby where I live, there's a plastic shop, and so I'll buy these blocks of clear acrylic. And what's nice about it is it gives the canopies a very, very nice sheen. You can polish it up, and neat thing about acrylic is when you glue it to itself, or you glue styrene plastic to it, the super glue to acrylic is like a magnet to steel. It just adheres instantly, and it's hard to break it away. I usually cut this with my Dremel skill saw. You can see where the blade broke there. And it looks like I was trying to cut a slot car body out of that. So I'll use a Sharpie and draw my pattern. Now, oftentimes what I will do, like in the instance of the P-66, is I will take this 3 view, I'll go to the copy machine and shrink it down to the scale necessary, which is 1/44 scale here. So unlike the P-60, so you'll see this also had a clear fuselage, but it's very dark. I realized that, if you paint the underside white, then you actually get a reflection, and that's what I did here. So now it actually does look clear. So this has a clear acrylic body, and then styrene plastic wings and tail, and the landing gear, the tires happen to be O-rings. And add a little bit of a, exhaust port there, and then some of the pistons there for the rotary engine. Now, what's interesting about the Vanguard is that this was also a Lend-Lease program, and they were supposed to go to Sweden, and then that contract canceled, and they were supposed to go to the United Kingdom, that contract canceled, and then 129 of them were sent to China, and then the 15 remaining stayed here in the States. Next Anigrand kit is one of the most interesting ones, I think, out of the P-60s, and that's the McDonnell XP-67 Moonbat. Very futuristic for the time. It flew in 1944 and unfortunately only had one flight. It caught on fire, crash landed, and that was the end of the program. It's really, really unfortunate that happened, because who knows what technology could have come out of that. But really neat design. And again, Anigrand does some nice work on their resin kits, and they produce their own decals as well. Now the final two are kind of interesting. The XP-68 Tornado made by Vulttee, you may look at that and say, hey, this looks exactly like his XP-54 model, and that's because it is. The military gave it a number, gave it a designation, and it was supposed to have a different engine, hence the reason why it got a designation. But other than that, it never got off the drawing board, and there's nothing in the book on it. In fact, we move from the P-67 here and flip right to the Republic XP-69. Now, this is an interesting plane in and of itself. I really like the look of this plane by Republic. And it got to the 3/4 mock-up stage, and then the project was canceled in favor of the Republic XP-72, which we'll have in the next video. And that was kind of the follow-up to the P-47. It has a double rotating prop. This model was made by scratch built by myself. And I used, like the others, acrylic and styrene, so acrylic body and styrene plastic wings and tail. For whatever reason, I'm not sure why the bubble canopy isn't clear. I don't remember. I built this like 10 years ago. But anyway, it was a pretty large fighter. As you know, the P-47 was also a pretty big fighter too. Well, I hope you found this video fun and entertaining and informative. And by all means, do some more research on your own if you're really interested in these planes. And take care, and we'll see you in the next video with the P-70s.